Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we are going to be doing this teardrop wire wrap technique using this kambaba jasper stone. Here are our materials to get started. The wire we're using is 20 gauge square copper wire, 21 gauge dead soft half round copper wire, pliers, flush cutters, our paintbrush, and our stone of choice. So I am using this teardrop shape kambaba jasper stone. Okay, the first step is to wrap our wire together, but first we need to measure out our wire here. So I'm going to take my square copper wire and I'm going to measure it using my stone. I'm going to leave a couple inches up at the top for my bail, and then I'm going to rotate my stone around one time to measure that out, and then I'm going to leave a little extra space on the bottom for my bail as well, and then you can go ahead and snip that amount off. I'm going to go ahead and cut 3 pieces of the same length wire. The length of your wire all depends on the size of your stone, but my length here is about 6 to 7 inches. We are going to go ahead and cut one more smaller piece of the square copper wire that I'll show you what to do with later. Now we're going to take our half round copper wire and we're going to cut off a small piece to wrap our 3 pieces of square copper wire together. So now we're going to take our 3 pieces of square wire and just spend some time straightening them out, because square wire tends to get kinked up. You don't want it to twist on you as you're trying to wrap. So go ahead, straighten them out and get them all 3 in a row. Then we're going to take our piece of half round copper wire and we're going to put it face down onto the square wire. Starting in the middle of the square wire and the half round wire, you can start to secure the 3 pieces of square wire together by wrapping the half round wire around. As you're wrapping this wire around, you want to hold on to one end with one hand and wrap with the other hand. That way you can make sure none of the square wire is twisting and that it's also remaining tight. I'm going to speed this up here, but just keep wrapping your half round wire until you reach the end. Now we're going to grab our pliers and just pinch it tight. And then using our pliers, we're going to tuck the ends on the back side so you can't see them. If your half round wire ended up being too long, you could just go ahead and snip off the ends and then tuck the rest in. So step 1 of wrapping the wires together is finished, and this is what it should look like. Now we are going to move on to step 2 of forming the teardrop shape around the stone. As you're forming the wire around the stone, you want to make sure that the cut ends of that wrapped wire are facing the stone. I'm going to take about a minute here to speed it up and wrap this wire around the stone, just in a general shape, and then we'll rejoin. Once we have a general shaped form around the stone, we're going to take the wire and spread out the 3 pieces on each side, and then we are going to interlock them, or rather just alternate the wires. Now that you have your general shape and your wires interlocking, you're going to grab your stone again and you're going to form it more tightly around the stone. So take some time to make sure that it's centered and everything is where that you want it to be. I don't like when mine becomes off-centered or if there's any gaps showing, so I just take a while using my fingers to pinch it and make sure everything is tight and where I want it to be. Now that we are just about done with this step, we need to secure it into place while we wrap the bale. So this is what it should look like at the end of step 2. For step 3, we are going to need something like painter's tape to hold the stone in place while we wrap the bale. Now that our stone is secure with the tape, we are going to take the pliers and we are going to bend the back 2 wires across the back of the stone just a little bit so that the stone doesn't fall out the back. Now I'm going to speed up and do the other side, but the only thing you want to keep in mind is to make sure that you do both sides evenly so it's not lopsided. And then we will rejoin to do the front. Now that the back of the stone is secure, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the front, although you don't need to bend it as far in the front as you did in the back. But again, just make sure that both sides are even, especially for the front. You want it to look nice and centered and aligned. So now our stone is secure. It's not going to pop out the front or the back. We're going to move on to forming the bale. Although first I like to buff out scratches as I go. You can always wait until the end, but when I see them, I just do them now. If this was a coated piece of copper, you would have to be a lot more careful with your tools because you couldn't buff them out. Before we make the bale, make any final adjustments and make sure the back, middle, and front wire are exactly where you want them to be. And then we will move on to forming the bale. So I know this is hard to see, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm separating and straightening all of the pieces of wire. So you can use your pliers, but I think it's easier to use your hands to separate them by the back, middle, and front pieces, and you're just going to straighten them straight up. So I have the back pieces separated and straightened. I'm working on the middle ones right now, and then I'll straighten the front pieces. So now that they're all up and straightened, they're no longer interlocked and none of the pieces are twisted either. This is how it should look. So the back 2 wires are going to be our bale. So we are just going to take the back 2 wires and separate them from the rest of the wires. And then we're going to get these other wires out of the way so we can wrap our bale a little bit more clearly. So I'm just going to bend the right 2 on the side and then the left 2 on the side just to get them out of my way. So these back 2 wires are going to be my bale, and then the rest of these wires are just out of my way. So the prep of the bale is complete, and the next step will be to wrap the bale. So this is what it should look like before you're ready to wrap the bale. So now it's time to wrap the bale. So you're going to take 5 to 6 inches of your half round wire. That might be a little bit too much, but it's better to have too much and then cut off any excess rather than to cut multiple pieces. So just to orient ourselves, we have 2 wires on the one side, we have 2 on the other side, and then we have our 2 in the back. So we'll take our half round wire and wrap it around the 2 back pieces. So you're going to hold it down with one hand as you begin your wrap here. So you're going to wrap it around a few times, reposition it, and make sure it's tight. And you want to make sure that the half round wire doesn't twist here. So keep wrapping until it's your desired length. You likely have more than enough wire here, but we can always cut it off if there's excess. So as you keep wrapping here, you're going to want to use your pliers to keep pinching it along so that there's not any gaps. So this is the length bale that I want, and I'm ready to cut off the ends of my wire. So I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm going to just snip off the ends and make sure I'm snipping them on the back so that way there's not any loose snags anywhere. So now we'll take our pliers to tuck in the ends, that way there are no snags poking out. And then we'll just pinch the whole bale to make sure it's tight and straight. So now you can take your paintbrush or something similar to wrap your bale around. And then we'll take our pliers and just pull it down a little bit more, and then we will pinch it close. Here is our wrapped bale. This is what it should look like. And now we're ready to grab that short piece of wire that we cut in the beginning, and we're going to use it to wrap all of these wires together. So you will start in the middle of the short piece of wire, and you will take both of the ends and pull them towards the back of the stone. And then you can continue to wrap around both ends of the wire to tie all of these pieces of wire together. I'm just continuing to wrap these around and then pinching them together using my pliers. So you can wrap this as far as you'd like and then just cut off the extra as long as it feels secure. So now our bale is completely wrapped, and we can go ahead and remove that painter's tape since everything is secure. Now that the bale is complete, this is what it should look like. And now we'll be ready to move on to the last step, which is to figure out what to do with these 2 extra wires on each side. For this last step, we're going to wrap these final wires. And you can do anything here, any design that you like. I'm gonna take the 2 wires on the right and just kind of bend them forward and into a little curled shape here. So on parts like this, I just kind of like to go wherever the wire takes me. So I'm going to continue looping this around to make 2 little loops in the front. While I'm here, I'm going to turn it around and snip off these extra pieces on the back. That way I can tuck my little wraps in the front around. Now we're going to find somewhere to secure these pieces. So what I'm going to do is wrap them around the back. And then I'm going to take this back piece and lift it up ever so slightly. And then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to take this little extra piece on the back and I'm going to wrap it and curl it underneath this part that I just lifted up. There's a couple different ways you could do this. So if your piece of wire in the back wasn't as long as this, you could always wrap it on the side like I'm going to do with this other shorter piece. So just kind of work with what you have and see what's going to be best. Now that piece of wire is out of the way, so we're just going to finish off and tuck it in. So you're going to do the same exact thing on the other side for that shorter piece of wire. So you're just going to loop it under and then tuck the end in. Okay, now we have that side in place, so now we just have to figure out what we're going to do with the other side. So I decided that I'm going to cut these off, that way I can make just small little curly cues. So what I'm going to do is take the tip using my pliers and just curl it within itself. So I'm kind of making a curl within a curl shaped here. So for this last piece, I think I'm just going to hide it away. So what I'm going to do is tighten up my bail here because I'm going to take the end of the wire and tuck it right inside of there. So I cut it just a little bit shorter so I can bend it up and tuck it right up inside of the bail. I'm going to pinch it down and there you go, it's hidden. So this is pretty much done. Here's our final bail and all wires are accounted for. So now we just need to tuck in those tiny little pieces on the back. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers again and just curl them up and under. So I cut my pieces a little bit too short, so it's just taking me a little bit longer to make sure that there's no pokey ends hanging out. So I'm just buffing out the scratches on the wire here, and I'll eventually oxidize this wrapping so that way we can get a deeper color. But otherwise, this stone is finished.